Hey everybody, it's F-Bomb Fitzgerald, and if you've seen my past videos, you know I'm a big fan of unusuals, including unusual warpaints. I also am a fan of warpaints with rare patterns and bright colors, and that's why it's probably not a surprise that I love the Macaw Masked warpaint. This warpaint is famous for having a huge variety of different colors you can get, from bright blues to dark purples to greens and oranges, yellows, and even white in extremely rare cases. Depending on the seed you get, you can have one single color throughout, which is known as a gem, or multiple different colors on a single weapon. I also really like the feathering texture that's on the skin itself. Given my appreciation of unusual weapons and the Macaw Masked paint, I was extremely excited to meet this guy. Hey, stop looking at his hat, that's not what we're here for. So Ninevolt is a gentleman who collects unusual Macaw Masked skins. When I first found him, his collection was around 70, but by the time we were done filming, he had closer to 100. When you look in his backpack, you can see the amount of different effects and the fact that some are strange, some are unapplied, but the thumbnails are just generic. You can't actually see what are the colors or patterns. So I thought, what better way to showcase it than have him die a bunch of times and spawn, so I can pick them up and give you the first person perspective of what they look like. I'll let the weapons themselves and the inspection animations do most of the talking, but I thought I would share some interesting tidbits that Ninevolt shared with me. One of my questions to him was whether any energy orb Macaw Masked items exist, and he clarified that the energy orb effect was retired before the case that has macaws. So the only possible effects on a macaw are isotope, cool, and hot. What's interesting to me is that for most warpaints, isotope is generally considered the most desired and highest tier of the effects. But Macaw Masked is interesting because that variety of color patterns means that different effects might be more desirable on different patterns and gems. So with the gem discussion, if we are talking about a green gem item, isotope is probably the most desired on it. But if we're talking about an orange gem item, hot might be better. And similarly, if you have a blue or even white gem item, cool might actually be the best effect for that skin. So here you can see the bright blue on the handle, and that's why cool might be best. Whereas this is a green gem with isotope, which looks really dope. And finally, I'm gonna show you a orange gem on the whip with the hot effect. Honestly, that skin, it's hard for me to imagine another warpaint that would look better with hot than this one. I mentioned earlier that Macaw Masked can come in a variety of different colors with different chances to get them. So the most common color with Macaw Masked is green. You have almost a 50% chance of drawing a green seed. And the second most common color is blue, which drops down to about 27% chance. After that, it's orange, which is around a 1 in 5 chance. And then it drops precipitously to yellow at only a 4% chance, and then finally white, which is a tiny square in the seed pattern, which is only a 1% chance. There are also some other rare color variants like teal, which is where the blue and green lines meet on the seed, as well as purple, where the orange and blue lines meet on the seed. The rabbit hole of what's considered desirable on an unusual macaw gets pretty deep. It starts touching on things like what parts of the weapon can you see and what parts of the skin are available on the user side versus on the outside of the weapon, as well as where the effect is on a given weapon, like this one where the hot effect is touching the orange part of the weapon instead of the green. That's considered better than if it was vice versa. Then there are other warpaint niches which have overlap with all warpaints, including Macaw Masked, and I'm talking about things like blood scopes. I think I have a couple which I'll show here when we get to the sniper section. If you haven't noticed, I'm actually going across classes as they appear on the selection screen, so feel free to skip ahead or go back if you want to look at any specific class. Given the sheer number of unusual macaws in Ninevolt's collection, I didn't want to show you all 100 items because that would take an insane amount of time. Instead, I just highlighted my favorites. And even over the course of doing the small amount of curation I did for this video, I noticed myself developing a preference for certain color patterns and how they comboed with certain effects, so I definitely understand why this appealed to Ninevolt when he was making this collection. Beyond that, there's something that really just appeals to me about seeing people get passionate about a esoteric and niche aspect of TF2. My video about the Ritzy Rick collector is a perfect example of that, and so is Ninevolt with this very specialized collection. I did ask him if he was aware of anybody else having an unusual warpaint collection dedicated just to a single warpaint, and he said that while there were a couple people who collect something like that, nobody does it on the scale that he does with Macaw Masked. He also said that his collection was one of the largest unusual warpaint collections out there, and I certainly believe it. This also got me thinking hypothetically, if money and time were no object and I were to try and build an unusual warpaint collection, what paint would I choose, and would there be anything specific that I would be hunting down, like one of every war paintable kind of item in the collection, or maybe a specific wear on every single item? Let me know in the comment section what kind of unusual warpaint collection you would build in a perfect world, and what would be in it. Seeing Ninevolt's Burning Flames team captain pair so nicely with some of the hot effects on the orange skins made me think, what are some other good unusual effects that pair nicely with the existing unusual weapon effects? Frostbite for cool comes to mind, as well as abduction for isotope, but let me know in the comment section if you can think of any other really good pairings. Finally, I wanted to really emphasize this weapon. This was my favorite in his entire collection. Considering there's only a 1% chance to get a white gem, to have this much white on a cool warpaint is just astronomically rare. Speaking of rare, this is a good example of a blood scope, which is when the blood spatter pattern on a lower wear weapon covers the entirety of the scope. There are collectors in this niche, and this is a full blood scope on an isotope macaw sniper. Pretty darn cool if I say so myself. Like I said earlier in the video, I had to pick and choose and curate which items I showed to you from his collection just because there was so many, but I tried to get a variety of different gems, effects, weapon types, and made a point to really try and show all 9 classes as well to the extent that he had them. Even though this video ended up being super long, you have to believe me when I say I tried to curate it as much as possible. At the end of the day though, I really did want to show you the sheer variety of colors and patterns and effects, and just how neat of a collection Ninevolt put together. I've never made a video that focused so exclusively on unusual weapons before. Usually at most, it'll either be a gameplay video where I'm using an unusual weapon, or a laudable loadouts where I'm talking about an unusual weapon just kind of in passing about how it complements an existing unusual hat set. But let me know in the comment section what you thought of this video. And hey, if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing, because it does really help me out as a small channel. Thanks for watching, I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see y'all in the next one.